Hello, welcome, beautiful souls. My name is Sadhana, and tonight is my Thursday night tarot chat. And tonight is all about the wild unknown, specifically the wild unknown tarot deck. And over the next few weeks, I'm going to do several videos. I have been prompted by numerous YouTube subscribers, commenters about the wild unknown. I've also been inspired by comments in various Facebook groups, and invariably it comes up once, twice a year. There's always seems to be a stream about a misunderstanding or people dismissing this amazing deck for its simplicity or other reasons. And we'll get to that. We'll get to that really soon. So before we get to the wild unknown, I am just cracking open the mini version of Fantastic Being. And this is the latest deck in the Nature Inspired series by Rebecca Lefebvre, with art by Phoebe Hunt. I haven't even looked at it. I also received the larger one as well too. And I have been working with her fauna inspirations for quite some time, and you've probably seen it in some of my different readings that I've done, different year ahead readings or combos or various things. And I am just so in love with these decks. I love the energy that they emanate. I love their versatility. The messages on the back of the cards are so thoughtful and full of, they're just so full of medicine. And so I've decided Rebecca is going to be my first guest on a new series that I'm starting on September 13th called Creator Stories. And so she's going to be here live, and we're going to talk about her decks and her journey, which is an amazing, amazing journey. And so, yeah, so Fantastic Being. This is really, I'll just show you a couple of the cards in case you haven't seen this deck. The lighting is not optimal right now. Wow. Here's a brightly colored one. This one's called Comet. And the keyword is celestial. And just like her other deck. So this is a mini deck, so it has square corners, but it has that same lovely natural feeling uncoated. It's got some kind of coating on it, natural feeling paper. So I will be showing the Fantastic Being. And as well, I'll be doing, hopefully before she comes on the 13th, I'm also going to show the mini decks, the junior decks that I haven't shown, and then we'll have a chat with Rebecca on February 13th. Sorry. Oh my God, I'm already in February. I'm doing planning. I'm planning for workshops and so forth. September 13th. And I'm hoping to do, if you know creators that you would like to see on my channel, then let me know and I will invite them. And so I'm going to do this about once every 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. So yeah. So welcome everybody, and hello to the 9 of you that are here already. Essence, welcome. Georgia Peach, Joseph. Yes, I know you've been waiting for this, and you're the one that I decided, okay, I'm just going to start this because I have so much to share about this deck. And Michelle, welcome. So glad to have you here. Welcome to everybody who's in the background. I'm going to pull a couple cards before we start because I think that's a great way to begin. Hello, Patrice. Wild Unknown was your first deck, but fallen out of favor since I've discovered so many other decks. Yes, it is, I think, because so many other amazing decks have come on board, it's fallen out of favor, but also there's a whole new generation rediscovering this deck. And so that's why I'm here. I'm going to share with you some of my insights and things, as you saw in the description, in the title. So I'm going to pull a couple cards. For those of you that have been with me over the last few weeks, months, I've been working with the Archetype Tarot, and I pulled a card. Usually when I sit down to do these things, I pull a card, and really interesting, I pulled the Knight of Pentacles, which feels like in perfect alignment with this deck. It's a deck that doesn't have a race. And in the Archetype Tarot, the Knights are in black and white, and there is a deep, I don't know, there's so much contemplation with the Knights, which are called trails in this deck. And these trails are meant as the guides into the journey of the suit. So I couldn't have pulled a more perfect card to segue into this adventure. And I also thought I would pull an archetype card to see if there was an overall kind of energy in working with the cards tonight. So yes, I'm going to pull one of those and see if I can weave that in throughout the messages tonight. And excellent. Okay. So if I miss any of your comments, you can please repeat your comment or put something in caps so I see it. I am on StreamYard because I'm going to show some photos tonight. So I can't see, if you tag me, it doesn't show up on StreamYard. I have to have two windows open, and sometimes things can get boggy if I do that. All right, so, oh my goodness. Okay, that was a lot of archetype cards that fell out. All right, so the archetype we are going to be working with tonight, and I've got a lot of things on the table here, so we'll just move this out of the way. Whoa, that's interesting. The gem. The gem. Okay, so very interesting. Kind of like the diamond in the rough, right? The diamond in the rough, which is exactly the energy of this deck. So I have come up with 10, and I have them over here on a Word document so I can kind of stick with the program. There's actually 11, but we'll see if we get through these. 10 ways to help you connect or reconnect with the Wild Unknown Tarot. And I want to let you know that I did, now this was quite some time ago, I did a video on the animal spirit. And it's not in the description below, but I'll add it later. And since then, I've made some mods to this deck. And yeah, I really like this deck as well, too. And so if you want to have another reference, I do have one video on this, but I am going to be making more videos on the tarot deck, the archetype deck, this deck. I'm going to do some readings. I'm going to do some deck combos and various things. Okay. All right. So pulling out the cards. Don't know if I'm going to need them or not, but we'll see. So number one. Number one is go wild. Go wild. And what I mean by this is to get out into nature and experience it. Experience the wind on your face. Experience the breath. You know, that breath after the rain, and you go into the forest and it's humid and you can't really breathe deeply because there's so much moisture in the air. Feel the earth beneath your feet, whether that is on the sand or the grass in your yard or the dirt on a path. Feel the sun on your skin. Get scratched. Get bit. Get stung. Get covered by cobwebs. Trip over the roots in the forest. Something I do all the time. The feeling of the energy in the wild is so very, very different than when we are inside, when we are indoors. There is a different frequency. Even if you are in the city, there's a shift in frequency between stepping indoors and stepping outdoors. And the closer you can get to the wild, the higher the frequency is going to be, and the healthier the frequency is going to be. So one of the, I don't know if you saw the thumbnail, so I posted that on Instagram today. One of the ways to work with the deck is take the deck itself out into the wild and draw your cards, do your reading out in the wild. So it's a totally different experience pulling cards outdoors than it is indoors. So get out there, get dirty, get bit, get stung. Trip. I think trip is a really good one. Listen to the song of the bird. Listen to the language of the bees. The range of possible experiences, evolutionary, awakening experiences, is so much greater in the wild than within the confines of the four walls. From encounters with elementals. I used to have, and I never saw this particular elemental with clear vision. It was always a shape out of the corner of my eyes. And I'm going to say about 3.5, 4 feet tall, large, heavy elemental, very curious about me and what I was doing in the forest, all the time sensed that experience. So when you're out in the wild and you're out there regularly and you build a trust with the area, with the creatures in the area where you are, things start to happen and things start to appear, all kinds of magical things, not just 3-dimensional, 4-legged or winged or bugs and things, but other crazy things start to happen. So yeah, so get out there into the wild. Plant medicine. So if you are in the wild and you start to pay attention, whether you begin with taking photographs or just walking or slowing down your walk, or maybe you always walk with your earbuds in, or maybe, I don't know, you always walk with friends, go by yourself, go off into the wild by yourself and listen and be more receptive. And take your deck with you and pull your cards out in nature. And you have a completely different experience. And so as I work through this series, what I'm going to do is do an Instagram post every day and to reconnect with my deck in the wild. And so, yeah, so I haven't posted the one from today, which you're going to see in a moment. It was a really interesting pull. So that's my number one. All right. So it seems pretty obvious. This deck is, after all, called the Wild Unknown. All right. So number 2, and let me know if you have any questions or comments about some of the things that I'm saying as well too, because I do tend to ramble on. And I love it when hello, Kyle. I would love to, hear your thoughts on any of these points too. So number 2 is to let go. And I feel like this has been a theme over the last few videos that I've been doing. Let go of expectations. I think there's certain expectations that we have when we crack open a tarot deck, that a 4 of Cups is supposed to look a certain way, or an 8 of Swords is supposed to look a certain way. And the expectations that we carry into a deck are very similar to the expectations that we carry in our life, in our day-to-day life. So the letting go process, expectations are just one, but it can really help if we come to, and this is not just for this deck, this is every single deck that we work with, like the one I just shared with you, the Full-Arcos Tarot, is that if we can approach every new deck or every deck that we're revisiting with a fresh eye, with the mind of a child, with the mind of a beginner tarot reader, with the mind of, with receptivity and with openness, I think it can just make such makes such a difference. Let go of knowing. Let go of knowing. After all, this deck is called the Wild Unknown. And so we have this deep clinging to knowing, to always knowing, to be attached to be too cerebral. And this is not a cerebral deck. This is a lunar deck. This is an intuitive deck. This is an energy deck. And so we need to let go of our excessive cerebralness. So that's another let go. This kind of ties in with the previous one. Let go of being comfortable. So comfortable, if you take your deck out into nature, you are going to experience things that are not comfortable. You might step on something that is not comfortable. You might brush up against something that is not comfortable. You might not be comfortable looking at some of the images on the card. So what does it mean to let go of being comfortable? It means that, well, what does it mean to you? Like, to me, it means that if we step into a situation, if we step into a card that feels uncomfortable, it's because it's unfamiliar. And so why is unfamiliar uncomfortable? And so there's something about this deck, and I can think of a few others. For example, the New Era Elements deck is another one where we need to really examine that comfort discomfort thing. It can really help if we allow that inner dialogue. And so in letting go, I'll show you the postrum today. Just let me get that on the screen. And sorry, this is a bit of a process to share my screen. Application window, share. Okay. So let's just talk about this little reading here. Yeah, and this, I'm reading Kyle's comment. It might just very well be a matter of semantics. Letting go of being comfortable is related to giving up control and expectations. So one of the things that when I saw this card, and this has to go with letting go of what a certain card is supposed to represent, or what a certain card is supposed to mean. And perhaps this comes from my practice with Tarot de Marseille. It comes with learning to read intuitively. It comes with no expectations for what the reading is, but approaching a 3-card, especially a 3-card, a little harder to do in a 1-card, with the energy of story. Right? So yes, this is Temperance. Yes, this is 5 of Wands. And yes, this is 8 of Swords. But if we can let go of what those mean and really have a look at some of those images. So for example, here's a couple of things that struck me. One is that the flame in the Temperance card underneath the stork is a mirror image upside down of the cocoon in the 8 of Swords. And so I sat reflecting on that as I was out with Amber this morning, and I took this on the bench up where I go with her. And so I thought that's really, really interesting. And so I did some journaling about that. Like, it's, if I could have tracing paper and overlay one on the other, it's a very similar shape. And I thought, wow, now that's really cool. And then I was looking at the swords underneath the butterfly that's about to emerge. And then I was looking at the wands in the center card and thinking, well, what if those swords just started to float freely, like in that Five of Wands? And what if we could just release them? What if I could just release them and let them float away like a thought? And so maybe that card in the center is a reminder to me, because it was a reading for myself, to just allow those obsessive thoughts to float away. Why am I creating that restriction? And so look to the card in the center for advice on the freedom. And so these are just like, this is how. So this is about reading intuitively, but it's letting go of what a card is supposed to mean or what a card is supposed to represent. And this deck is really good at forcing you to practice that. So yeah, so that's one example. All right, so number 1 was go wild. So go into the wild. Number 2 was let go of multiple things. Find my Word document. Number 3, and I should have pulled these out, but we'll get to them, is to embrace the challenging cards. To embrace the challenging cards. So in this deck, of course, we've got the 9 of Swords, the 10 of Swords. You might have challenging cards in this deck that you don't like. You might not like the Death card. But let's just go and grab I'm going to get the 9 and the 10 of Swords, because I know those are cards that, well, we have that those worms first appearing in the 5. I need a bigger laptop so I can see what I'm doing here. So why embrace the challenging cards? And I want to talk about this for a couple of minutes. And right, so here is the 10 of Swords with the sword running through the empty eye sockets of the bull. And in the 9, we see, it's like, you know what it reminds me of, the 9 of Swords? When I went to camp, we sang a song called Nobody Likes Me. I'm not going to sing it for you. Nobody likes me. Everybody hates me. Sitting in the garden eating worms. Long, slim, slimy ones. Short, fat, juicy ones. Itsy, bitsy, fuzzy, wuzzy worms. I'll never forget this song. First you bite their heads off. Then you suck their guts out. Then you throw the rest away. Seriously, this is a camp song when I was a child in elementary school. That's a song about being okay with the uncomfortable. It's a song about, I don't know, it's a nonsense, silly song, of course, too. But my point here, I'm going to go back to my notes because I'm going to go off and start talking about camp. What I want to say is avoid the tendency to dummy down the challenging cards. So, for example, the Death card. Let's talk about that for a moment. So the Death card, and this can apply to any deck. In this one, we have the skeleton of the bird, perhaps the skeleton of the Fool. And if you don't have your deck handy, I'll do my best to keep showing you these cards that I'm talking about. So here's the Fool. And then we have the Death card, which I will leave out. Let's leave the challenging cards here. So in the death card, I think there's a tendency as a tarot reader to say that it's an ending. It's a significant ending. It's a big ending. It's not about death. And I believe, I feel that we do a disservice to the potential of a reading by dummying down the challenging cards. So what if the death card is the death of the Fool? The Fool is a little bit older, the beak is a little bit longer, the head is a little bit bigger. There's been so many wise ones that have said something like, in order for something new to happen, something has to die. And for something to die, and this connects to the previous one, we actually have to let go of it. We can't carry a photograph of it anymore. We can't put it on our mantle. We truly have to let go of it. And so I think the tendency is to have that security blanket and to carry that security blanket. And so part of this is talking about the death card in general, but the tendency to dummy down challenging cards is because, again, we don't want to be uncomfortable. So what is it about cutting a worm in half? Is it about your connection with ahimsa and nonviolence, and you don't want to cause harm to animals? Is it that it brings up horrible memories of when you were a child and you actually cut worms in half? Is it you don't like worms? You didn't like putting worms on a fishing rod? Like, have these conversations. Like, what is it that is not comfortable for you? What is it about the worms and the eyeballs and the swords in this particular 9 of swords in the tusk? And I'm assuming the tusk is connected to, well, it's from another animal, but I think it's an important part of this deck. This deck wants us to feel. It wants us to feel. And so if we put the deck away because we don't like the cards that make us uncomfortable, then we can't embrace the deck. So I hope that makes sense. Oh, Patrice, you know that song? Yeah, I'm glad somebody else knows that song. Okay. So I have a couple other things to say about embracing challenging cards and natural cycles. Death hurts, death is painful, something needs to die. Oh, and as I was writing this out, I was watching Once Upon a Time, watching a rerun of that. And it was something in that series. I love that series. And I think it was, so Mr. Gold was talking to one of the characters, and just a reminder, like, if you want this life to be restored, if you want this life to be renewed, then one life has to be released. So these natural cycles are part of the natural way of being. Consciously embrace the cards of balance to navigate the challenging cards. Oh, I have so many notes here. Okay. So what I mean by that is, so in that reading that I was sharing with you from this morning, the Temperance card, this is deep. This is big. Temperance is an opportunity for us to actively temper our life. The Temperance card comes after death. And if we are able to let go in death, and if we're able to experience the pain of death, and we move into temperance, and we understand the balance of life and learn to temper our life, we learn to temper how we move through life, how we become the alchemists of our destiny, the alchemists of our day-to-day existence, then we have integrated the teachings of the death card. If we do not, then we move to the 15th card, and we either have excessiveness and compulsions, or we create these restrictions around ourselves, too much restriction, which causes behavior to go in another direction, right? So all those things that come up in the devil card. So that the processing of every single card is crucial to understanding the deck. And if we're able to process the death card, then we move through temperance with more ease, and we have fun, and there's a playfulness in temperance. And then when the tower moments arise, they're going to be tempered. They're not going to be so extreme. But if we don't get the lesson, then that inner fire of the tower card is going to be explosive. So there's something about really taking time to process the challenging cards. I should really write a blog on this. I have like a whole bunch of other points, and I want to get on to number 4, 5, 6, 7, etc. Hello, Brenda. Welcome. All right. So let's go on. So number 4, one way that I have really enjoyed working with this deck, and I'm staring at this gem that I'll try to weave in later, is to pick a symbol. So, and I have worked with all kinds of symbols in this deck. So one thing you could do is to pull out all the cards that have lightning in them. There's lightning in quite a few of the snake cards. Of course, there's probably lightning in the tower card. And the 8 of Wands is a really interesting lightning card. And to look and see and feel into that symbol, because that symbol in some of the cards is going to make you feel a different way. So sometimes the lightning moves from the sky to the ground and there's connection. Sometimes it doesn't actually touch. Sometimes it is a rainbow color. Sometimes it's yellow. Sometimes it's orange. Sometimes it feels energizing, and sometimes it feels destructive. So take all of the cards with lightning in them and lay them out, and give yourself time to journal about lightning and all that lightning represents for you. And so the next time a card with lightning comes up, you will perhaps see something in the symbol or read something in the reading that you didn't before. Another one that's really interesting for me in this deck is the rose. So I love roses on the bush when they're like full and they're kind of in their natural place. I've never really liked receiving a bouquet of roses. And the main reason for that is that they look like the rose in the 5 of Pentacles all too soon. The roses they don't last a long time, even if you know how to take care of them or put that powder in the water. They tend to like do this at the neck really, really easily. And so I have an association with roses. I have a story about roses. I have a feeling about roses, which may be completely different than your feeling of roses. And of course, we have the beautiful roses in the 2 of Cups, which has a completely different energy, and it feels like a love card. It feels absolutely stunning and beautiful. And so pull out the cards with the roses and do some reflection on roses. And of course, you can do this with any tarot deck, but because this deck doesn't have that many pieces in many of the cards. It's a really good deck to do a symbol study. To pull out all of the cards and put them in a line, all of the cards that have a waning crescent, all of the cards that have a waxing crescent. What are you going to glean from all of the cards that are that are moving away from the new moon? What are you going to glean from all the cards that are moving towards the new moon, right? So the ones that are at the end of a cycle, the ones that are at the beginning of a cycle. I have found this really, really useful. Okay. So that's the symbols one. So that's number 4. Number 5, I could talk about for a long time. And so let's go to one of the court cards with the antlers, the Father of Pentacles. So here's an example. We have lots of rainbows in this deck, and we have intentional red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet colors in the deck. And so this next suggestion is either working with the colors, the chakra colors, or working with the elements, or working with crystal colors, whatever you are comfortable working with. There is a message in the color. There are messages in. So here, this is kind of very similar to what I was saying for the last one. So what about if you pull out all the rainbow cards? These happen to be 2 fathers, but there's also a rainbow in the 6 of Swords. So pull out all of the cards that have all of the colors. Pull out all of the cards that just have one color, and study how the creator has used that color. Like, for example, one of the things I notice in this Father of Pentacles is that close to the crown is the color purple. And that as the energy moves to the tips of the antlers, we're going back to the root chakra. When those little buds first appeared, right? The little buds that first appeared were these tips here, the ones that are now red. So these are the oldest ones. These are the newest ones. Does that say something to you? Does it not say something to you? If I look at the 10 of Cups, which is another card that has so much energy moving between the cups, what if that cup on the top left, which is emanating the blue color, was pointing toward a card? So what if that blue, those lines of blue energy, which are in this shape, were pointing towards something? You could also look at it that way. So that blue light, that blue energy, what does that blue energy mean to you? Does it mean truth? Does it reflect the stuff in the throat chakra? Do you have another association with blue? What is the color blue? What is the frequency of blue? Things like that. And if even in the wheel, it's really interesting because in the center of the wheel, we have a lot more color than in the outside of the wheel. And so why is the center of the wheel more intense than the outside of the wheel? And what does that mean for the reading? And what does that mean for you in your interpretation of the card? Does that mean that the color hasn't emanated to the outside of that ball? Or does it mean that the outside is lacking energy, that the intensity is in the center and there's not so much energy in the outside of that ball? Maybe it means something else to you. So look to the colors and see what they mean. So if I were to pull, like, here's another absolutely brilliant card, the 6 of Cups. And if we look at the Six of Cups side by side with the Emperor, it's a really brilliant study. So you could do this as looking at energy, but you could also do this looking at the medicine of the trees. So in the Empress, we have the feminine deciduous tree, and in the Emperor, we have the masculine evergreen tree. I should move these out of the way. I'm never going to get to those tonight. So just bear with me while I get the Emperor. There's the Empress. Here's the Emperor. Really kind of interesting. Oh, and we have the eclipse. The eclipse is a symbol too. So in the Six of Cups, we have the privilege of seeing what is below, as above, so below. And what is below is actually, looks like it's more full of prana than what is above. And if you take time to reflect on how the energy is drawn in this deck, you can pull so much out of this. What if you looked at the Six of Cups and you had a card above, and that black part of the tree was pointing up to something, and the colorful energetic part on the bottom was connecting to something below? And so for me, that would mean that this card here is the card that needs the attention. This is the card that needs the life. It's the card that needs the prana. This to me looks more like the phallic symbol of the Emperor card. And then, so yeah. So this is how I work with the symbols. This is how I work with the colors and the energy of the deck. You guys are really quiet. Okay. Where am I? And how are we doing for time? Oh, we're 41 minutes in. Okay. Number 6, be in the moment of the card. Be in the moment of the card. This was a really interesting revelation that came up for me. I've been doing a little research because I'm planning several videos on this deck. And one second here. I want to find you this one. Okay. How do we do this? This one. Share. Okay. So this is a version of the Eight of Swords that wasn't used. So here in this version, you see the cocoon in the full dormant stage, right? So the I don't know what you call it, the pupa, so the energy of the caterpillar, the larva is in there, and it's in a beginning, it's in a stage of an early stage of development. It's very much in a hermit stage. It's in an inward stage. And what actually was published is this card, where we see the butterfly starting to emerge, and that outer protection of the cocoon isn't there. So my point for this one, and I hope I can make it clearly, is to be in the moment of the card. So this is the stage where the butterfly is about to open its wings and fly away, but there happens to be some gnarly things below it that are going to make the expansion of those wings a little bit difficult. And there's something about being right here, right now, in this moment. Why am I afraid to spread my wings? what is it that is prohibiting? What is it that is restricting me from opening up? And so if you can go into the moment of the card, exactly where the card is. Let me see if I can think of another example for you. This one was so easy because I happened to see that old card on Kim's Instagram page. There's got to be other examples here. To be in the moment. I mean, that's such an important lesson all the time. So what about this one? So here's another butterfly example. So the 6 of branches, the six of branches, 6 of wands. Really interesting how she chose to draw these 2 cards. So if that butterfly emerged and was cocooning in all that gnarliness there, that butterfly somehow survived all that gnarliness. Gnarliness is a good word. That darkness, survived the darkness, survived the entanglement, survived all that is represented by the dark. And kind of like we were talking about in this card, the butterfly knew instinctively. All the butterfly had to do was open its wings, and then it would be free and be able to move on and move forward, and could say, yeah, I actually did that. I actually did that. And so here you have an opportunity, if you can be in the moment, be present with exactly what's going on. So the butterfly has chosen to move from the entanglement of all those branches, and without any harm to its wings has been able to fly away. So if you're struggling with a card, just really have a conversation with it, like right here, right now, what's going on in this card, and start to describe the card in the present. Okay. Absorbed in what I'm saying. Okay. Alrighty. Where's my Word document? Alrighty. Number 7. And I touched on number 7. So number 7, the lines really intrigue me. There's something about them that I have. One day I lined up all the cards with horizontal lines. I lined up all the cards with vertical lines. I lined up all the ones that are converging. I lined up all the ones that have like the arc shape, because I was trying to see if there was a if I could get something from the lines, because there's a subtle message in the lines. Like the horizontal lines feel pretty calm. Like there's nothing going on. There's no action. So if you went and you picked out all the cards that have horizontal lines, like here, for example, is the 9 of Pentacles, and not talking about the color that's in the background or anything like that, there's a real sense of stillness in the horizontal lines. The horizontal lines are just I don't know. So here's another one with horizontal lines. And I don't know about you, but for me, the two of Wands is very much a card of pause. It's a card of reflection. So maybe if we pulled out the cards, so here's another one, the one we just looked at, has horizontal lines. You might think I'm crazy. So maybe those horizontal lines represent stillness. Maybe not. maybe, and here is the Seven of Pentacles. And it's so interesting the way Kim chose to draw this. Like why are these lines at right angles? What does that say to you? Does it say anything to you? Is it moving in a certain way? Quite a long time ago, I did a video on, what was I talking about? Seeing the mandalas in the minors of seeing the mandalas in the minors of pip decks. And in a way, what I'm saying with the lines is something similar. Like there's some medicine in the lines. And if we can see the foreground, if we can separate the foreground from the background, there might be something in those lines. And what do the vertical lines represent? What is the energy of those? Because it's just and I don't have the answers. I'm just saying this is a way to connect with the deck. Because I feel that some of the lines feel like they're converging, but other people see them as diverging. So is there restriction in the convergence? Is there freedom in the divergence? Does the querent need to hear that? Does the querent need to know that in the divergence, there is so if the lines are diverging and you have like an Ace of Wands and you have, I don't know, maybe even like an Eight of Cups, it's like a real symbol of like to step away, to step out. Just some food for thought. Just some food for thought. So let's see what's going on over here. Seven of Pentacles, step by step, moving up toward the goal. Brilliant. Brilliant. Step by step. Yeah. There you go. So there's one interpretation, step by step. Love that. Okay. Number 8. Seems like a bit of a no-brainer. What about animal medicine? Animal metaphors, animal mythology. We have, well, let's go to the swans. Let's go to we can go to the snakes too. Let's go to the swans. I like swans. So the swans, there's so much to work with swans. So the quartz in the pentacles, sorry, the quartz in the cups. And maybe this is something that you want to take some time to reflect on. And maybe you want to go to I don't know, because like there's a swan in the wildwood. Go to other decks and pull out the swans, pull the swan out of this deck, and start to have a look at the energy of the swans. So when I think of the swans, I think of the goddess Saraswati. I think of the voice. I think of the song. I think of the teaching of the swan song, the death of the swan. I think of Apollo. Apollo rode on a swan. I think of the muses. So if you think of the story of Apollo, and Apollo was the leader of the muses and all of that mythology, you don't have to know any of this, but all of this is out there, right? It's all out here, right here, for us to tap into. And so many of you have seen me doing readings, and I'm looking at cards, and all of a sudden this stuff just comes through my mouth. I don't know where it's come from. It's come from somewhere out there, because that's what I need to see, or that's what I need to say, or that's what the querent needs to hear in that particular moment. And so if you know about the story of Apollo and the Muses, and you know that Apollo also rode a swan, and you know that Saraswati is connected to the swan, and there's something about the voice. And here we are in the suit of cups, which is traditionally associated with emotions and love and da 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 da, not the suit of swords, which is connected to communication and the voice. Then if you start overthinking it and going, oh, no, I can't talk about the voice because this is the suit of cups, then you're not going to allow your observation to come through. And it's really important that that comes through, whether that's through, a book like this, or a book on Greek mythology, or something you learned from one of the Wildwood reference books. So the animal medicine can really, really help, especially if you're stuck on a card. Like that rat in the Four of Cups. Can we talk about the rat in the Four of Cups? So I'm really curious. I mean, I have a few ideas about this. So if you have any thoughts on the rat walking across the Four of Cups, the rat is walking to the past, if that matters to you. The rat is walking to the left. I'll try to find it. The rat pretty much covers all four cups. The cups are not moving. So this is an example of about talking the card through. So of course I'm not going to find it. So what does the rat bring up for you? That is my question. So if you have, think about the Disney movie Ratatouille, think about the behavior of the rats. If you've ever lived with a rat, if you've ever had to trap a pack rat, it feels very Four of Pentacles to me rather than Four of Cups. So what's the connection to the heart? What's the connection to the heart? What's the connection to water? What's the connection to intuition? Rats also live in water. Rats can swim. Rats can survive a flood. Think about Indiana Jones, right? Think of all those horrible scenes where all the rats are running all over the place. So when I don't know where that card is. I'm assuming that most of you have this deck. So if you don't have this deck, there's four upright cups and the rat is walking across the top of the cups to the past. So you can then, so if you're totally stumped, then go look at other decks. Go look at other references about the energy of the rat. Is there medicine in the rat? Does the rat have some sort of healing energy that you're not aware of? Is there an underlying, on Kim's Instagram page, there is a book that's out of print that I'm actually going to go and try to find. It's called The Psychic Powers of Animals. And I saw it on eBay. I'm actually going to purchase it. It looks really, really interesting. So I see none of you guys are chiming in on the round. So anyway, animal medicine is kind of a no-brainer with this deck. Animal metaphor. So that's number 8. And then we have number 9 and number 10. Number 9. And I think my number 9 is one of the reasons why I wanted to make this video and to make a few other videos. And that is that I feel, so number 9 is simplify. Simplify. This deck gets called all kinds of, people are mean. Have you ever noticed that? People on, especially in some of the Facebook chats, people say really mean things about cards and creators and decks. There's no thought as to how would the creator, how would the artist perceive this comment. There's no thought as to, well, maybe there's something I'm not seeing maybe I could dig deeper. I'm just going to trash this card or trash this deck. And I think one of the things I read over and over again is that it's simple. And so my question for you, my question for myself is, why is simple challenging? What is it that simplicity brings up? And if we go to its opposite, complexity, why are we more comfortable with complexity than simplicity? And to me, these drawings, these cards are anything but simple. They're minimalistic. Like if I'm trying to find an adjective, they're not simple. They're minimalistic. Like this Four of Pentacles is so cool. Like this would be an amazing card to put up on the wall and sit with Tritak. So Tritak is the practice where you can do it with a candle, but you would place the card on the wall, so right at eye level, and you would put a little dot in the center of the card. And I know what would happen with me is that all of those bands would start to move. So with Tritak, you stare at the center of the usually a mandala. You stare at the center of the mandala until your eyes start to water or you can no longer keep your eyes open. And then you close your eyes and you try to keep the image in your third eye. And then once the image, the internal view of the image disappears, then you open your eyes again and then you do it again. It's an amazing practice for developing your intuition. It's amazing practice for clearing the mental chatter. But every time I look at this Four of Pentacles, I think I really need to practice Tritak with this Four of Pentacles because it would be a trip, right? It would be a trip to do that. So yeah, so anything but simple. I have a few more notes on simplicity. Let's see what I have over here. Joseph, I think that has to do with the cardstock. It's got nothing to do with the images. The original deck was quite cardboardy, and the mass market deck is definitely more shuffleable. The images have not changed at all. And then my last question under simplify. Oh, simplify. Simplify was my keyword for number 9. How can the simplicity of these lines encourage deep thought and reflection? Well, I think my thought about the meditation practice with the Four of Pentacles is a really good example. So this horse is so sad. So sad. Okay, so last one, number 10. And then I'm going to try to tie in the archetype card that we pulled for tonight. I need a sip of water. Didn't some of the images change in the second edition? I have been going through so this deck came out in 2012 as a indie deck, 2012. And then it went through a couple of different, I think there was a small run, it sold out, it came out again. And it wasn't until, so Harper in November 2016, Harper won. That's when it first came out as a mass market deck. And in going through, so you can go through, if you're interested, you can go through the Wild Unknown Instagram or Kim Cran's Instagram. There's 2 different accounts. And there's lots of images that were not published, but I haven't found any that were actually changed. So please correct me if I'm wrong, because I would love the intel on that. All right. So number 10, you ready? Any idea what number 10 is? So number 1 was go wild. Number 10 is get wild. Right? Number 1 is go wild. Number 10 is get wild. What do I mean by that? A lot of these things I've said before, but it's about starting to color outside the lines. And you can take that quite literally. I have seen some amazing decks where people have actually used this used the deck and colored in their deck. So it's like, I can't imagine coloring in the whole deck. So that would be an example of coloring outside the lines. Color your deck. Get to know your deck through coloring your deck. This is the Archetype deck, and I colored I edged it in an abundance of different colors. But I think what I mean about this is to try something new. And maybe within many of the things I've already said, there are subtle messages or not so subtle messages of trying something new. Of course, there's trying something new and letting go. But I think we really need to embrace the title of this deck. And that is wild, and that is unknown. And maybe that means, I don't know, what does that mean? It means taking your Wild Unknown tarot deck next time you go to Starbucks and doing readings in Starbucks for random people. Maybe it means, I don't know, what does it mean? Like, I was thinking, like, I was looking at the journal, which I have recently acquired. And I really, really like this journal. I'm just going to go to the beginning of it. So there are journal prompts on all of these pages. So there's keywords. So for example, on this page, the keyword is connect. So you could connect with paint, you could connect with pencil, you could connect with words, you could connect with drawings, you could connect with, with collages or something. And the thing I like about this journal is it helps people who are stuck, who need a little push to be creative. And so here, the keyword is extend. So here at the beginning of the journal, she gives different examples of how you could possibly extend. And in one example, there's writing all over it. Somebody does squiggles, somebody does straight lines. And so to be wild, to me, simply means to, I don't know, like maybe you've never journaled before. Maybe you've never picked up colored pencils and colored in your journal or shaded your journal, or you've never written off the lines. Maybe you always write on the line. What if you wrote between the lines? What if you wrote 2 lines high, like in a elementary school primer? Like, seriously, do something wild. Like, cut the edges off the cards. Like, this deck is all hand drawn, so the borders, there's not perfectly straight lines around the cards, so it's a difficult deck to trim in that regard, because you're going to lose, they're not all perfectly even. But I don't know, like round to the corners. Go wild. So this is the Archetype card that we drew at the beginning of the video, the gem. And when this first came up, this reminded me of a teaching I've spoken of before, and that is the about finding the gold in the rough, finding the gold, finding the medicine in the challenging things. And I think the more challenging you find this deck, the more medicine there's going to be in this deck for you. So that's one thing that I take from this in relation to what we're talking about tonight. Yeah, the gem. I also have one other thing that I wanted to share with you. This was totally bizarre. And I think it was in the Instagram post. So on the thumbnail, the card on the left, I think, just give me 1 second here. So it was in one of the cards that has all of the black in the background. And I was staring at the card. So, you know, sometimes like if you are writing in your journal and you don't want to erase it, or you don't want anybody to see what you just wrote. So you can either take whiteout and put the whiteout on top, or you can take your pencil really hard and kind of scribble on top of it so nobody can see what you wrote. But really, if you look close enough, you can actually see what's underneath. Well, I saw something underneath in one of these cards on the top, and it actually said, "Happy birthday." And I don't know whether I am delusional. It's in this card. It's in the 10 of Wands. It's in the 10 of Wands. I saw happy birthday and the top left of the 10 of Wands. So this card, I don't know if you can see it, but I saw it. And I don't know why that appeared to me, but maybe I was staring at the cards far too long. I don't know. So anyway, take what you will from these 10 points. And if nothing else, I maybe, do a reading for yourself tonight or tomorrow with this deck, and shuffle it and pull it out and have some fun with it. And let me know what you think. Okay. Thank you so much for being here. And as always, I wish you well. Love chatting with you in the comments below. And yeah, so mark the date. September 13th is my first Creator Stories interview. And I'm really excited about it. I've wanted to do this for a while. And if you missed the beginning, I'm going to be doing it with Rebecca Lefebvre. And this is her latest deck called Fantastic Being. This is the unicorn card. Yeah, so that's going to be at 1 p.m. Pacific time. So stay well, and thanks for being here tonight. Namaste.